right, let's go. All right, guys, welcome to another episode. KevJai, we're just here doing our thing. So what we wanted to do is we just want to talk about how we invest in one another and how we invest in ourselves more rather. I had a quick discussion with Jai, for example, with respect to just investing in ourselves in terms of the things that we do, like his camera versus my camera. My camera is over $200. His camera is under 200, or I think $20, he said. So, so the whole point,
200, under 200.
either way, his camera is cheaper than mine. And the thought process here is, I was telling him earlier, I am sure he's invested in things that are more expensive for less value. And so what we're doing here is we're doing podcasts, we're providing knowledge, we're creating content, which I think is the future. And for one to worry about whether a camera is $200 versus this crap that you probably put in your mouth and McDonald's and all these things which aren't doing anything but killing you slowly, you would think you would invest the most money in the things that can give you the best gain. So just want to have a quick discussion about it, hear what Jai has to say about it,
Sure.
and let's get into it.
Yeah, sure. First off, my camera is not cheaper, it's less expensive. Semantics here. But notwithstanding, the reason we're talking about this is because I believe that investing in yourself now, especially when it comes to like equipment like social media stuff, is key and pertinent to how you make yourself valuable in the future. And the reason why is when you look at, I think I was watching something, and when you look at generations where our parents, they needed to work. And the reason they needed to work is because they didn't have a choice. So in other words, they went to work, their employers were not too nice to them, but they didn't have a choice but to go to work 9 to 5 every day, whatever the case may be in the mines, whatever they did, they just had to work. With our generation, I look at it more that we're just trying to maintain our standard of living. So in our parents' generations, they had to work because they needed to survive. So that's different. Now we're looking at it in a situation where we're surviving, but we just need to maintain our lifestyle. And the younger generation coming, which is the social media generation, and that's why I brought this up, they need to have an environment. They don't need to survive. They don't need to maintain their standard of living because we give them that. They don't need to survive because their grandparents already gave them that. What they need to do now is to basically have an environment where it's conducive for them, which is why social media is this generation is called social media generation, and they invest in social media equipment. So like cameras, microphones, and I think it's important that we also need to do that. So that's what we're talking about before this whole thing started. And I just wanted to put that out there because not that I agree with you that mine's less, cheaper, but at the same time, I think one needs to invest in equipment if you're going to move into a social media platform. So camera is one of those things, microphones, headsets, So yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Okay. All right. Still doesn't explain why you cheaped it on the camera, because it sounds like you know what has to be done, yet you still didn't
I'll
invest in the camera.
I'll tell you why. When I went to the store and I legitimately asked, I said, hey, what's the difference, 4K and, 1080p? And the lady was like, well, the 1080p is pretty good. 4K, definitely you're going to get better quality. However, if you're just doing something like starting off on a podcast, you can try the 1080p and see if it works. Primarily, I figured, you know what? Why spend money on something that, you're not sure about? So I bought the 1080p. But in retrospect, maybe, I'm just thinking out loud, maybe I'll go back to the store and switch it up for 4K, and then we can try it out and see. And if we're getting the same results, then guess what? I was right. And buying something less expensive. The only thing I can think of is maybe switching my my microphone for sound quality. But in essence, you can hear me, or the audience and the viewers can hear me. So Why do we need to spend that much money on it? It's all about
Thanks.
saving money too, right?
So basically, I guess what you're saying is your thought process is definitely just echoing back what you're saying in terms of this generation. And, you know, this generation kind of doesn't have to fend for themselves because the previous generation kind of gave them a little bit of a leg.
Yes.
Totally get that. But your logic is basically, go as cheap as possible. And then,
Invest in yourself is what I'm saying, but not as cheap as possible. In this situation,
okay.
I think.
But
Go ahead.
but think about it, you kind of did. You kind of did. You went with what was mainstream, and this is respectable. This is a great conversation. You went with what was mainstream versus going with what's cutting edge or more, not necessarily bleeding edge, but just cutting edge. You know what I mean? I think 4K back in the day would have been bleeding edge, but I think it's safe to say 4K is kind of standard these days. But then you have your mainstream with just 1080p and stuff like that. And also you got to remember a lot of our content is broadcasted on, reels and things like that, where, Instagram, Facebook, they'll end up compressing or not compressing, but downgrading the quality anyways. So what I'm trying to say is I'm tongue in cheek with you, but I'm not totally disagreeing with you. I think at the end of the day, there's a lot of people that have your mindset. Here's where my thought process is. My thought process is to invest in yourself. It's always good to leverage at least somewhat bleeding edge technology, because the great thing is that you could always downgrade quality. But if you have something that's limited in quality, it's very hard to upgrade it. Yes, there's some apps where you can upgrade and things like that, but it's never the same. Upscaling to 4K is never the same as native 4K for all you tech people out there. So that's my thought process. So for me, it's more go big or go home. But I definitely think that's not a more common perspective because it is more costly. And I'll be the first one to admit it. I'm not saying I have unlimited resources, but I do have, company that I can expense these things on. And so I leverage it from that perspective. So just wanted to say, Jai, I think more people are kind of more mainstream, and it makes sense, your perspective and how you're looking at it.
Yeah, I think to that point too is when do you invest in it? Because, okay, maybe we start on the playing field and agree on one thing. You don't want to start by using your computer webcam or your computer microphone. I think we're both on the same page
100%.
on that. But how much do you spend, or at what point do you spend over a certain amount of money? Do you know what I mean? Because we're just starting off. So why do I want to spend $200-300 on a camera? Over $200 on the camera, over $200 on the microphone. That's like $400-500. Not everybody has that amount of money to spend on something that they're just starting off. Maybe over a period when you start gaining subscribers, then maybe you can invest in that. Which is the angle I'm coming from, is how much is too much, or where do you start out from? And you have to remember, for someone like yourself or even me, we can probably afford it. But someone like yourself, you've done this multiple times, so you've seen the progression of what it is to use certain types of equipment, like 1080p versus 4K. For someone who's just starting off, when do you start off, or what's too much, or how much to spend to say, okay, I'm at that level? You know what I mean? So that's the angle I'm coming from. But I think we're all on the same page that investing in yourself, especially because we're in this social media generation, and that's why I gave that anecdote of our parents, our grandparents, and this generation coming after us, is they need to invest at some point. But I don't like how much you need to invest. I think that's where the question lies.
Yeah. And you're right. You're right. And it's funny. I can go in circles because I can say that you're really putting a limit on your future. Really? Really, Jai? You're putting a limit on your future? So another way to look at it, and again, this is for people that kind of think like myself. I look at it like this. It's not about if I'm going to be successful. It's more when I'm going to be successful. So if I'm looking at it from a when, why wait? I might as well just buy and get the best and put out the best for my subscribers when I get them, not if I get them. And the reason why I bring that up is because I think a lot of times motivation and having confidence is probably one of the biggest things that a lot of people don't end up finding in themselves.
Mhm.
And I'll give you a perfect example, just like how you gave an anecdote. I'll give an anecdote that's a little closer to home, which is me. A lot of times, what I do is I have so much content. I do videos and I do so many things, and then all of a sudden I hit one snag, and then I just my perfectionist perspective, I just don't show it to the day of light, or I never publish it.
Mhm.
And so my whole thing is that confidence is so important.
True.
And so sometimes it's not just about the mental aptitude, it's really also investing, putting your money where your mouth is.
True.
So another way to look at it is if you do spend $300, you're damn well going to use that camera because it's
That's
$300
very true.
versus you buy something that's at a nominal price. You may just cut your losses and say, okay, you know what? I wanted to do this, but a little bit nervous. Nothing's going my way. Got a couple of hiccups, had a couple of setbacks. So, it was only $30 or $50 investment, whatever. Versus you spend $500, $300 on a camera, you're most likely going to use it. You're most likely going to leverage it, and that might just motivate you, or that might be the one thing that motivates you. So I look at it from that perspective. I don't know if you look at it differently, Jai,
Yeah.
or
I get what you're saying. I guess I just don't want the message to be interpreted to people who are starting off to say you have to spend this amount of money because people might not have that amount of money. So the more I think the message that we both have is you need to spend money to make money, right? Not, but you don't have to kill yourself, is what I'm trying to say. So if you have $200 to buy a camera, make sure you buy the best $200 camera. If you don't have $200 and you have less than that, know that you still have to invest at some point in the future, but start by investing because it's only when you spend money that you know the value of it because you're going to be using it. If you don't if you don't buy this camera or somebody gives it to you, you might not use it because you're like, you got it for free or you got it for cheap, like to what you were saying. But I guess my message is I don't want to discourage people from starting something because they don't have money to buy a certain type of equipment. You get what I'm saying? But the message is you have to invest.
Yeah.
You have to buy something, get like a good camera, good microphone, start off with that. And you realize over time, to what you're saying, Kevin, is that after a while you realize it's not functional to what you want to do. So when you want to talk to multiple people, you want to bring somebody on your platform, or you have to interact with somebody in the same room, you realize that maybe the camera is not good enough. Like you say, mine isn't. It's a bit grainy, but that comes with trial. If you don't try, you won't know. So that's the message I'm trying to put out there is start with something. You have to spend money. You do. Maybe not as cheap as me, but you have to spend money. Yeah.
Yeah. So now, and I think we're kind of on the same page, just from different perspectives.
Correct.
You're coming at it from the cheap side. I'm coming at it from the cheap side.
On the
So
rich side.
I guess. The long story short, though, ultimately, don't let your financial situation or your circumstance stop you from doing what empowers you,
Absolutely.
and allows you to just be your own creative self and give and produce. I think one of the biggest things is production. We consume so much. I think at the end of the day, if you consume, you should always be able to at least produce something.
Correct.
I think that's the key thing here. But yeah, so thanks, Jai.
No worries.
Great topic. I know you had another topic that you wanted us to kind of quickly go over or discuss. I don't know if you wanted to lead into that or
No,
kind
I
of
think we touched on it briefly, but I'm just thinking about this workforce, like employers in the employees in the workplace, and I think I kind of touched on it. What do you think about this whole younger generation of going into the work, like working from home, going into the office? Because employers are finding a hard time retaining the younger generation because they feel they don't need to work. I wouldn't say that they have it good. Some might argue that they do, but I think with every generation, the previous generation always thinks that the next generation has it better than them. But when you're living in that generation, you don't see it that way. I don't know if you know what I'm saying, because our parents would tell us, "Oh, you guys have it good now because, this and this happens, or this and this is where you're using." But when we're in the workforce, we don't see it that way. We're still working. So the younger generation, they see it that they don't have it good, but employers are seeing it that they're, for lack of a better word, spoiled. I don't necessarily agree with that whole thing about how they view the younger generation. But what is your take around employee retention for the younger generation? Because it almost seems like you have to make a lot of accommodation to be able to retain them. Things like having them work from home, be more flexible to their needs around the workplace. So maybe an average 8-hour day, they can take like 2-hour lunch breaks, things of that nature. Like, what's your take on that?
Yeah, no, it's an interesting topic. I think where my perspective is, I'm from the generation just before baby boomers. So I think the baby boomers are like my parents.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm 1979.
Mm-hmm.
So I dated myself, unfortunately, but I think I'm the generation right after my parents. And so I worked in a factory. I know what it's like to work for 12-hour shifts and work at from 11 at night all the way to 7 in the morning, and loud, this and that. And the other part to it is that because my parents had that, to your point, what you said, they're the generation that just worked hard, worked hours. The boss was the boss and you were the employee. I kind of learned and watched that because my parents grew up that way. So that kind of bled off into me. You see, you become what you see. So what I'm prefacing is I'm now in this new world with an old kind of mentality. So I wasn't fully baby boomer, but I know the value of work. I know the ethic of work. I do what I love, fortunately, and I'll stay up till 4 in the morning to work, right? Even though I get paid lots of money, right? I'm just being honest with you. I'm a consultant. So, but it's because I love what I do. But how did I get to become this place? How did I get to this place where I love what I do? It's simply because I worked hard at it. I got into the tech space. I keep my ear to the ground, and I truly love what I do. So coupling with that work ethic from my previous generation, and then finding a passion, this new generation of working remote, flexibility and this and that, it works for me because I know the ethic. And so, for example, even though I'm remote, I don't watch TV. Even though I'm remote, I do not take breaks. I take breaks when I have to pick up my kids from school. That's my only break. So the point is, I have that work ethic where the remote works for persons like myself, where my clients know that they can trust me. I'm always available. I'm not disappearing all of a sudden because I'm remote. I'm not watching TV. I'm not getting distracted. My deliverables are still being met despite the fact that I'm remote. So to answer your question, Jai, I think the challenge with the new generation, they're once removed. They don't have that ethic of seeing real hard work. And they now just see, let's be honest, people like me, where I didn't really work hard. I have the ethic because I saw my parents do it, but I'm a little bit more relaxed. I've always been a white collar job. My daughters probably just see me at home doing nothing. So they're removed. They don't know. They don't see their grandpa. They don't know what their grandpa did, which was my dad. And so basically, I think what I'm saying is they're lazy. The new generation's lazy. And I think it's tough because I love remote, but I understand the requirements of remote. I understand what it means to do remote. Do they understand it? Do they know how to really focus and not watch the Flintstones while they're working? Because when you watch TV, you mentally will just get engrossed. And so you gotta put on something called white noise. So for example, the only show that I watch, if I'm ever watching anything, is a show on reruns that I've watched a million times. So it's just white noise for me. Maybe I just putting it on because I feel like I'm in a room and it's too distracting and I need something to keep me like white noise. That's what I'll do. Play music, not brand new music, hit music that I'm going to get engrossed in, but classical music, things that I've already heard and listened to where it's not going to draw my attention. It'll just be something that as white noise. So in the long short of it, long-winded answer, I think this new generation can't handle it. They don't have a work ethic. And so I think they're the ones that ruin remote work. I think people like me are the true essence of remote work. We know what it means. We keep our discipline. And at the end of the day, we don't take for granted this luxury of working remote.
Okay. Fair enough. Fair enough. But I'm going to push back a little bit on this, the younger generation. So let me ask a question. Is it easier to swim with the current or against the current if you're in a lake or a stream?
Well, I think that's a pretty it's kind of rhetorical question.
I know. And the reason I
Swim with the current, if you want me to answer it.
You swim with the current, right? And the reason I raised that is because.
But hold on. Wait a minute.
Okay.
Wait 1 second. Wait
Okay,
1 second. I'm changing my mind.
Okay.
It's easier to swim with the current. But if I'm really trying to learn how to build strength and learn how to really grow in terms of swimming and becoming excellent, I think it's easier. You should swim against the current.
Yeah, but that becomes an exception because you're trying to do something different. And remember, exceptions don't make the rule, right? Now, if you look at this younger generation, everyone is, I wouldn't say everyone, but let's just say a good majority of them are wired to think the way they think now because of their environments, because of what
our generation,
because of what we've given them. So can you really call them lazy for something that they've been giving and something that everyone is doing in their generation and everyone in our generation have done to them? So, I mean, that's why I said I'm going to push back a little bit, because I don't necessarily see them as lazy. I just see them as taking opportunity for what they've been giving. They're taking opportunity of what they're just doing what they know. You know what I mean? So if you were to push it back to our parents' generation, they would probably say the same thing about us too. But would you agree that we're lazy? No, because we were giving what they didn't have to work and just to maintain our standard of living, like I was saying. They work to survive so that we can have a better life. We're working now so that the younger generation can have a better life. So when we say that they're lazy, I don't necessarily agree with that, because it's the opportunity that we've given to them that they're just taking advantage of. So when you look at somebody who comes into the workplace, yes, they're not like us, and no pun intended, but they don't work the way we do because they're used to everyone watching TV while, or watching Reels on Instagram, because it's a social media age. You know what I mean? So everyone's doing the same thing. It's very hard to deviate from that. That's why I give that analogy. Is it easier to swim with the current or against the current? If everyone's going with the same flow, everyone's doing the same thing, why do you expect them to do any different? We've already given it to them what it is that they should be working for. So why do they feel they need to work hard? So it's not like they're lazy. It's just the opportunity that they have, and they're just taking advantage of it, which is why I think the employer's mindset needs to start changing to accommodate these things. And I'm not saying hire people who are not going to do the job, but understand that people in their younger generation don't have much of an attention span as we would have, as an example. So we can work for maybe 4 hours straight, no distractions, or 5 hours. Maybe for them it's 2 hours. So you have to be willing as an employer to accommodate that and look and see past the whole lazy thing and say, these guys don't. No, I think it's just look beyond their flaws and look at their strong points and say, okay, I know this guy is going to come to me to work for 2 hours, maybe lay for about 3-4 hours, and then work again for another 2-3 hours. But what is he producing at the end of the day? It should be more focused on production rather than the hours spent working. You catch my drift? So that's just what I wanted to throw out there.
Yeah. And I hear you. And one of the challenges that I see with your premise is, okay, there's Walmart, right? We didn't
Mhm.
have Walmart back in the days.
Mhm.
There's all these shoes that are cheap. They look decent. They're not ugly looking.
Mhm.
But for some strange reason, this new generation, they still want the most expensive shoes.
Yeah.
So the whole point is these shoes cost money and they're really expensive. Yet I find it interesting that you want to work less, you want to do less, and you want to accommodate the new generation. Yet, even in our generation, the most expensive things are what's sought after. So, what I'm trying to say, Jai, is yes, I hear what you're saying, but the same basic needs of human beings exist. And so, how do you keep the basic needs of humans, yet now you want to change how we work? I think this is one of the challenges, and this is why the Western world is sort of losing, not to get into another topic, but say manufacturing,
Mhm.
right? Whether we like it or not, these things are low level, monotonous, things that are tedious. But at the end of the day, they take precision and they take consistency, they take concentration. And I think one of the challenges is that just this generation doesn't know concentration. And so I think all you're saying to me, Jai, all I'm hearing you is we got to curb quality for concentration of these kids and their lack of it.
Mm.
And I think that's a problem. I think we need more concentration. We need these kids to realize, yes, you can have luxuries, but luxuries come at a cost. And that's what the generation's lost. Now, I'll agree with you. It's our fault. Totally agree with
How
it.
do you
It
change
is
that? Yeah.
it is our fault.
Yeah.
The only thing though is that I put it on our generation to remind our kids of the quality of work, the
Mhm.
ethic,
Yep.
and to not spoil them.
Yes.
So for example,
Absolutely.
like I don't care how much money I got, my kids are not seeing anything until if I don't see discipline in them. Because I'll be damned if I give all this fortune to them and then they give it for a bag of beans because they don't know any better and they're being ridiculous. I want to say a more worse word, but I'll keep it at that. So I always remind my kids, like perfect example, I bought some shelves for my daughter, said for her to do it. If you need help, I'll help you, but you got to do it. I don't care. You do it. You want it, you do it, right? Long story short, she ended up giving up on it.
Mm.
And I always said to her, I said, listen, the fact that you didn't do it, if I ever open up a franchise, you would have been the manager immediately. You would have, yeah, you would have ran it. Because what you're showing me is through challenge and tribulations, you are persevering.
Mhm.
You're figuring it out. You're pushing through. But the fact that you gave up at your first major sign of dissension or problems, you're gonna still work there, but you're gonna be an employee. I'm not making you management. You're not gonna be management because at the end of the day, you haven't shown me that aptitude. So you'll work there, but you're gonna be a fryman or a cookman or something that is low level where it is monotonous and someone is telling you what to do because you haven't shown me the ability that you can take a problem and be creative and learn from it. So yes, I blame our generation, but our generation also has the tools and the capability to build character and build quality in our kids. So I will retract a little bit, Jai, and say they're not lazy. I think it's more their convenience.
Yes.
They're taking
Thank
advantage
you.
of the convenience and they should talk to their parents, try to be more critical thinking because at the end of the day, what I notice about this generation when they want something, they figure it
They
out,
figure it out.
right?
Yeah. And not to cut you short or anything. And that's where the conversation boils down to morals and what you teach your kids and character building and stuff, right? But what I'm saying in essence and why I said that is because in this day and age, the way technology has moved on so fast, it's given them the opportunity to find, like, look at AI. It's giving them the opportunity to find things at a very quick pace. It's a fast generation, it's a social media generation, attention span. If you send somebody a video and it's long form, unless they're interested in it, they're not going to watch it. Their brain is wired for 40 seconds, a minute, 2 minutes max, and they're done. We would watch it as urgent. So everything for them is quick, 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 quick. And then you expect them to now conform to our generation standards. It's going to be tough for them. And that's why, as an employer, that's why I keep mentioning it as an employer. I'm not saying to condone laziness or an employee who doesn't produce or anything, but understand the mindset that they're coming from. Imagine a child is born and when they start like being able to hold a device, you don't even need to teach them how to swipe. They just know what to do, right? It's a quick, fast thinking generation when it comes to computers and social media and those things. We don't do it, right? You see kids who want to record videos of them watching another video. You know what I mean? Like, can you and I understand that? No, but that's the generation that we're in. So I think it's left to the employers, especially organizations that have a Gen X workforce coming into play now, to understand how they need to manage these folks. Because if you don't, you're preparing yourself for failure. The other alternative is robots. Like, you can hire robots, but you still need human touches or emotions for certain things. So all I'm saying is, at the end of the day, whether we like it or not, the world has to shift and accommodate, especially in North America, has to shift and accommodate the people or the children that we're raising today. Because if consensus is not made on how to get them maximum effectiveness in the workplace, we're going to have, it's going to tell. It's going to tell. And you raised the point about other countries. Yeah, but other countries, yeah, I agree. They work for hours. We're a consumer economy in North America, but at the same token, other countries are used to that piece, but they have their own issues with this generation as well, where they'll tell you that this generation don't want to work as hard as the people who are working in the factories for 10, 12 hours. It's the same across the board, but it's just different levels of it. You know what I mean? So, well,
And with that said,
yeah.
we'll leave it at that. I have a lot more to say. If you guys want to hear us duke it out a little bit more, we'll be happy to continue. Let us know in the comments. But yeah, I want to say something else, but I'm going to stop.
We'll agree to disagree for now.
Yeah. But once again, great talks, Jai. And this is KevJai. This is our podcast. And please like and subscribe. We enjoy your comments. And we'll see you in the next one.
Sounds good. Take it easy, guys. See ya.